Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome. In this series of lectures, we're going to take a closer look at the identity and access management in Google Cloud. Now remember, IAM is for the authorization auth-z piece, not the authentication or auth-n piece, even though it has identity right there in its name. Really, it should maybe be called Identity Access Management without the and, or maybe just Access Management. But in any case, let's start with the resource hierarchy. The things that we create or set up in GCP are called resources. And as you've seen several times already, we put those into projects. Projects are the container that we use for a set of related resources. Projects also define a trust boundary, but that's something we'll get to in a bit. Now you can take projects and put several of them together inside of a folder. And you can also put folders inside of other folders, all together as a system of organization. But that kind of putting things in order organization is a little bit different from the top level of this hierarchy, called the organization. This is what's tied to a G Suite or Cloud Identity domain, like an internet address domain, like google.com or acloud.guru. So structurally, here's an example that Google provides. This organization is example.com, and it uses folders to divide things up by department for human resources, engineering, and sales. Now, I'm sure that HR and sales have projects as well, but in this case, we're only seeing the projects for engineering, those being example dev, example prod, and example test. Now, that can be a pretty normal way to structure your projects, to have one for dev, one for test, and one for prod. But the odd thing about this example that Google gives is that the resources inside of those projects don't look like you would expect them to look if this really were for dev, test, and prod. The point they're trying to make is that you can have all sorts of different resources in different projects, but really they should have made the set of resources much more similar between them if this were to be a real-world example of dev, test, and prod. But it doesn't really matter because the point is that different projects can have different resources. In this case, the project on the left has one compute engine instance, while the project on the right has two compute engine instances. The project in the middle is the only one that has a Cloud Pub subtopic, and it doesn't have any instances or buckets at all. Now, what I mentioned about trust boundary is that by default, things within a project sort of trust each other. So as we've seen from our labs, if you're trying to access cloud storage from a GCE instance, you can read from it by default if it's in the same project, but not if it's in a different one. In fact, the default service account that's attached to compute engine instances has quite a lot of capability to access resources in that project. And it's only the default scopes that you use when you're starting the instance that restrict that capability somewhat. But this is all just about the resources, so let's move on to permissions. I'll see you in the next lecture when you're ready. Thank you.